There we go. So today we'll do LAN and WAN, and we'll be touching on VPN and different ways to do VPN. Okay. There are services that you can buy that actually help you do this and mitigate it. There's for example, let me show you a couple machines. I've got a machine out there called phillipsd.com. And if we look at this, takes a while for it to return. Where this is in Fremont. I don't know if you folks have noticed it, but I've noticed that there's quite a slowdown on the internet today when you're going to sites that are not necessarily web-based. I will still get connectivity, but it's taking an exceptionally long time. Why this is, I can only speculate. I have no way of knowing, but knowing that there's a war going on in Ukraine, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if this has something to do with the cyber war going on. And there's a lot of very busy people right now trying to mitigate this, okay? So you can see that my ping is not returning, not very quickly. So I'm going to SSH into that box. Welcome to Troubleshooting 101. So now I'm troubleshooting and whoops, that's definitely not going to work because I've got it on a different port. And you can see it's still really slow. It's just taking forever to connect. However, if I share a different screen, let me push this one down. Okay, now you should see a screen that looks like a web browser, kind of, sort of, right? Or not? Do you see something that says Jupyter in there? Yay, nay? Or do you see the terminal window? Anybody?
Just the terminal window right now.
Just the terminal window. Okay, because what I'm looking at here is it says share, and it says you are sharing, and it looks like I am sharing according to the visual representation. It looks like I'm sharing the window I'm on. So that's good to know. So the terminal window is still the one that's open. Okay, so let me move over there. I may have to stop and start to share, I'm afraid. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I'm going to have to do. So hold on a second. Stop the share. Then go over here. Oh, geez. They certainly don't make this easy. All right, screen share. But it doesn't help when you have like 15 different windows open. I've got 2 monitors and 8 different virtual desktops. Most people don't have such a crazy setup. And I can understand why it's not behaving the way it should. Okay. Let's see if this works. Yeah, Google Chrome, share. Okay, now you should see the Jupyter notebook with the, or are you seeing my whole screen here? What are you seeing on the share?
Just a screen that looks like the Zoom home screen, like
okay, now if I move this up, can you see the Chrome window?
No, I cannot.
Oh, well, isn't this fun? Okay. Maybe what I have to do is share the entire desktop rather than, let's do that. I'm going to share the entire desktop of desktop number 2.
Here we go.
All right, so now we're seeing, so you see a bunch of stuff. So you'll see the Zoom, the chat, so a bunch of windows, a terminal and a Chrome window, right? Pretty much, give or take.
Just the Chrome window.
Okay, just a Chrome. Well, that's good enough for right now. So just so I know that just this is working. Okay, so you don't see the terminal. Does the terminal come into focus when I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, we kind of got it figured out. All right, so what I have here is that we were trying to log in and take a look at things. But if I go here through my HTTP, I'm getting relatively decent performance on my security. But when I try to log in through SSH, I'm not getting anywhere. So it's not working through SSH. So I don't know what's going on. I did have a router die on me. So might be related to my router config, which is probably what I'll investigate next, and see what I can find there. Okay, anyway, LAN, WAN, and security. Let's start with some fun, interesting things. I'm just bringing up a Chrome window here. And when you log in to our good friend mjc.edu, you are welcomed with some interesting, screens, right? You get video, or not video, but you get these pictures, okay? Now, let me give you a true story about what happened with this in the early days of the internet, or not even, it wasn't even that long ago. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. What happened was the MJC website would load just fine if you were on campus, okay? And I'll go to yosemite.edu. So it would load really fast. Everything was fine. But if you were at home and you had a slow bandwidth, it took forever to get that first screen to load. And the problem was, well, you just need a fat pipe. Well, that's not going to work for everybody. This is the same problem I had at Foster Farms when we were implementing SAP up at Kelso. We had an SAP implementation in Kelso, Washington, and an SAP implementation down in Livingston. And we had a LAN in Livingston and a LAN in Kelso. And they were connected over the WAN, the wide area network. The easy way to think of the difference between LAN and WAN is who owns the pipes? In a LAN, generally speaking, you own the pipes. You own the cable, the fiber that is connected between the buildings. In a WAN, typically, you do not own the fiber that goes from Livingston to Kelso. And this was the case. We didn't own it. We had a fractional T1 line that would work based on load. And this company called Red Prairie was telling us, hey, you have some bandwidth issues. And I'll tell you what, here's what happened is that they had this picture that when Red Prairie loaded, it was the warehouse management system that dovetailed into SAP. It had this beautifully 3D rendered graphic. It was like 9 gigabytes. It was huge. Agreed, it was beautiful. But in the LAN, where you had really close to 100 megabits on almost every machine, even faster in some places. It was not a problem. But when you're dealing with a WAN and you only get 10 megabits or even 5, you have a problem. Okay. So what ended up happening is we used Wireshark to point to Red Prairie saying, your 9 gigabyte picture is causing the problem. We do not need to spend $25,000 a month for a fat pipe just so you can load a 9 gigabyte file. And, Red Prairie said, oh, we can disable that picture. It was really interesting because they were not going to lift a finger to solve that problem. They just wanted us to go buy a really fat pipe. Well, that's ridiculous. You shouldn't need a fat pipe, that big of a pipe, to run SAP. SAP is basically web-based front end stuff like this. Not that, doesn't take that much. It's like running Outlook in your email. It's not that bandwidth intensive. Even when you do selects from the databases, it was all queued up on anyway. Anyway, that's a true story. And we had the same problem here at MJC, is that the web developers are on a fat pipe with fast machines. So they can make things look really cool. But it's not so cool when you are on remote access and you don't have that bandwidth. This is something that have found that people don't think about, the people with the slowest hardware. They only think about their own hardware. For example, there's a lot of different computers at MJC. Okay. If you really want to solve this problem, you give your web developers the slowest machine on the slowest pipe. Then they make things quick because they have to. But most web developers would revolt and if you did that sort of thing. It's doesn't make them very happy when you give them old equipment on a slow pipe saying, hey, we want to make sure that you remember the people on the slow pipes. Well, the way around that is to set up a second computer that's in proximity, that's got a slower bandwidth and a slower machine so they can test on it. And as web developers, most of you got to develop and test on all the different browsers, different operating systems. You have to have a reasonable testing harness. Now let's get into this area of how do I keep people secure in a remote arena. Okay, so I'm just going to bring this website up. Okay, and I'll just copy it and I'll just open a new window with it. I put it into chat. This admin magazine is actually really pretty good. They get consultants from all over the planet to write up these stories. And they're actually really detailed. So what this guy is doing in this article, he's actually reviewing a storage key. Okay. Basically, think of this as a key to your car. As you plug it into your computer, and you can now run your computer. When I worked with the SAP consultants, they all had one of these. It was put together by the RSA people, and they had an RSA key. Looks like this. So they have changed their name, of course. RSA, would help if I do it there. Well, you can see them. So you can see these cards, okay? I'll just bring it up on Amazon. I'll show you what it looks like. These little things here. And the way this works is the chips are synchronized with your server. And the way this works is you get a one-time password, and it's good for, I don't know, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, enough for you to log in. But these are one-time passwords. And now they're getting into things where the keys are fingerprint scanners. So you have a key that is tied to your thumbprint, and then you plug it in. This is one way to get some high security for remote users, so people don't log in by accident into your system. Okay. Turning on two-factor authentication is the number one way to what most of your white hat, black hat people are recommending today is to use two-factor authentication, but that can still be hacked. You can do a Google search on how to spoof 2FA, and you can find out how to do it. You actually have to already own the computer. You have to have pawned the computer. And then when they do the 2FA, you strip the cookie out of the browser, and then you can use it to get on. Okay. So security is a relative term. The other way, and the most common way, is to use VPN. And the VPN services, there's a ton of them out there. This is the one I like, WireGuard, because they're all free. And you can set up a WireGuard server in your house, and you can set up a WireGuard client on your PC. So you don't have to buy anything. It's all open source, but they're in the business of selling hardware. So what you do is you run this stuff and you do proof of concept, and you say, hey, this all works great. You get their hardware device, which you put into your computer room, and now you have a WireGuard VPN to your enterprise, and boy, is it fast. There's other companies that do this too, like Fortinet. There's the Fortinet tool that they use at JC, Fortinet. These folks, the Magic Quadrant, Gartner report. How am I going to explain this one? Think of your XY axis in algebra, and you've got 4 squares. The square to your upper left, the square to your upper right, lower left. So think of those squares. The Magic Quadrant, according to Gartner, is the upper right. Fortinet has gotten into that Magic Quadrant, i.e. price, performance, all those things by Gartner 12 years in a row, which is pretty crazy. This is definitely the Mercedes-Benz / Rolls-Royce / top of the line stuff. It's also expensive, but it's phenomenal. It's out of Israel, and the unit that they have at JC is the same unit we had at Foster's. It does deep packet inspection on every single packet that goes into the network. So if there's a piece of corrupted packet that's building up something and putting it on an old printer somewhere, it's going to find it. Pretty amazing stuff. But this is another way to secure your business. There's a bunch of different ways to do this, and where you will see this zero trust networking. This fits into the category of bring your own device. How do you secure a network when everybody's bringing their own device, and their own device might be infected out the wazoo with all sorts of bad things. How do you put them in a box so they don't infect the rest of your enterprise? Welcome to the headaches that come with BYOD. Okay, this is a real problem. And so there's many ways to answer this particular problem. For example, there are companies that will issue you a tablet or a computer or a notebook, and you don't have a choice of what software is on that notebook. You use it for work, and that's it. Other companies will you'll bring in your computer, the one that you own, and they run it through a serious test. And they probably load up some virus scanners on it. They'll load up maybe 2 or 3 different virus scanners, and they'll give you a VPN client. I'll show how to use the VPN to log in, and they will give you a secure way to get connected. Another way to do this is, we talked a little bit about Chrome Remote Desktop. I don't know if we did in this class or not, but that type of idea where you can actually subscribe to a VPN cloud provider. And I can't think of the name of the company off the top of my head. VPN cloud provider. There you go. So you can have next generation. Here's one. This is using free to connect. Now, what this is kind of a thing that they do is that basically they let you connect. So you'd have to do an evaluation and see if this works for your company or not. This may be a little too open, because sometimes you want security to be only your people connected to your hardware in your computer room. If that's the case, you probably want a hardware VPN that's in the computer room. If your company is more of a cloud-based play, there are other ways to secure things that aren't quite so expensive at dedicated hardware. Okay, so several options in that space, but the pieces that you need to line up for connecting things securely is, do I really, ask yourself these questions, I guess. Do I really want Joe Average's computer to connect to my network? If so, how do I put a walled garden, shall we say, put a jail, another way to refer to it, around his computer so nothing from his computer gets to my enterprise? Okay, this is a problem, because I don't know if you've heard, but one of the ways to remove problems on being attacked on your computer is, you may have heard this, is to enable Russian as a language, as the keyboard, all right? Because the way it works, you don't have to use it, you just enable it. And, this is kind of what we were, what the way it was told to us at DEF CON, is that Putin doesn't play directly with the bad guys, but he's got contacts that talk to the bad guys. So Putin said, don't hack Russian computers across the planet. So the workaround was, if you put the Russian enable Russian as one of your keyboard options, you wouldn't be hacked by the Russians. Now, whether or not this is true today, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, at one time it was true. They would hack and pawn a Windows box, and they would see the Russian keyboard, and they'd leave it alone and not hack it. Is that new information to anybody? Or is that something that the folklore has told you? You can just put in the chat, or you can speak up. I'm kind of curious. Okay, so it's new to a lot of you. Very interesting. Yeah, I highly recommend, if you have any slant towards security, go to DEF CON down in Vegas. The stuff you learn, it just blows your brain up. It takes weeks to absorb everything. And it's crazy. It's like, geez, it's like one big carnival. It is crazy. But you do learn a lot if you if you can manage to get by on 2 hours of sleep, because there's always something going on in the evenings. They have these different parties, they have these different hackathons, they have all these fun things going on, and it's like, oh my gosh. I'm an old guy, I can't do that anymore. So, but it is really interesting. That's where I learned this. Okay, so do the Chinese do the same thing? I don't know. But it is interesting to know that how to protect your computer. Well, did you know if you enable the Russian keyboard, it won't get hacked? And we're seeing more exploits in Mac OS, also in Linux. And the important thing with Linux is simple, is you just keep the updates going. You do the update, and then you don't have to worry so much. Microsoft, they've been rolling out more and more security updates. I don't know if you've noticed with Chrome, but I've got a Chromebook, and it's like every time I turn the thing on, there's another update. There's another update. There's another update. And I go, oh my gosh, this would be terrible if I was on a slow pipe. It would take forever for some of these upgrades to load. So I'm not Chrome OS and the Chromebooks has a place, but it does not have a place in the WAN. If you're on a slow pipe, now in the LAN, yeah, it's fine. It works great for schools. It works great for smaller enterprises that, say less than 1,000 computers or so. It's fine. But when you start saying I've got 10,000 computers spread all over the planet, no, it's going to take too long to update. Can you imagine loading a 9 gigabyte file over a hotspot from a 3G phone? It'd take 2 days. It would no. So there are places for it, but distant is not. Okay. All right. So, as you know, WAN stands for wide area. Basically, you don't own the pipes. And then LAN. Local. You do own the pipes. So the question is, BYOD, bring your own device. How do you secure it? Those are loaded questions. Okay. If you're an instructor at JC, and also some of the staff too, I think that a lot of the staff that have the ability to work remote also have it. We use a VPN client for the Fortinet. But if you're on a Windows box, you have to have the virus software that runs on the machines in the LAN. So it's the way the VPN works with the Fortinet. It's the same as having your computer in your office. It loads up the same virus scanners. It loads up the same Active Directory profiles. It loads up all the same type of software based on your credentials and your Active Directory profile. Okay. They don't offer this to students for obvious reasons. There's no reason for you guys to get on the payroll system. And you will notice that there's a separate network now for students and wireless. Shall we call it an Active Directory domain? And there's an Active Directory domain for students called My, as in My Yosemite. And there's an Active Directory domain for employees, YCCD. Now, I may be a little off on this, but this is just from my observation, looking at how the computers have changed their login sequences over time. And since I'm a Linux guy, I kind of do things on the periphery. And as far as I know, I'm the only Linux guy that is non-IT. Okay, so I don't work in the IT department. I don't know of any instructors that are hardcore Linux on staff or anybody else. It does give you more headaches because things don't always work. In fact, oftentimes things don't work and you just have to figure out why they don't work. And then you have to jump through some hoops to make it work. Okay. But the VPN Fortinet works great and it's super, super fast. You don't get a slowdown. Okay. So I don't have a whole lot more than that. I wanted to give you a little bit on LAN and WAN and the VPN services. If you, oh, by the way, the new router I just bought has a built-in VPN server. When we went through the Linksys router that we did in class, it had VPN pass-through, which means I pass the VPN traffic to a computer in my network. This router that I got, Costco special, has a built-in VPN server. So I can connect to my router from anywhere on the planet with the VPN client and have it secure. So it's getting cheaper and cheaper to do this. And I can't remember the cost of this router. I don't know, $200 maybe 250 plus or minus. It's my old one was pretty long in the tooth and it finally gave up the ghost and decided to go buy another one. So what router is it? I think it's the Nighthawk. I just found one that worked with cable and I just plugged it in. I found an active cable spot, plugged it in and configured it. And I didn't have to call anybody. I just made it work. I think, yeah, it's a Nighthawk, something or other. It's got 4 ports on it. It's supposed, they call it, it's Wi-Fi 6 enabled. Yeah, right. That's great in theory, but I don't have any Wi-Fi 6 devices. So what difference does it make? So I don't, they're making all those things. So, okay, I will admit it does have better wireless coverage than my previous router. That was nice. I actually get decent signal on the other side of the house because I do live in a known dead spot and it's sometimes hard to get signal to propagate in my area. Okay. All right. So kind of a short class today. And I'll be back on my game next week. Out of town this week. Life's been interesting. So on that note, I will stop the recording and we will meet again next week. And I will have office hours